Hi, Mark. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for
Oh,
coming on.
yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to be connected with people who are spreading the message of consciousness, which is so important, especially at the time we have. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I'm really looking forward to this conversation because, as you say, you're a conscious, you really walk the path when it comes to consciousness, exploration, and spiritual development. So I'm really excited because you've been an entrepreneur or since you were 17.
All my
And
life, yes.
yeah, exactly. And you told me in a previous conversation you started over 3 times. So clearly you know how to build that outer million, as you put it so lovely before. And walk me through that journey. The moment you realized that business success wasn't enough, what was missing, even when everything looked successful from the outside.
Right, right. So I was brought up in a I was brought up in a family, middle class. My father was a carpenter with his own carpentry shop, 10 employees. Mom was housewife, and so nothing special. But me and the piece of wood, because my vocational training then was carpentry, of course, I was like, no, I can't imagine my whole life, being behind glass and in a shop, in a workshop, and with a piece of wood. So it didn't feel right. I did my father the the honor to complete the carpentry training successfully, but I was very clear after 3 weeks already that this is not me. So on the side, a year later, when I was 17, I started the vocational training at 16. On the side, I was looking for opportunities to do something different where I'm more, where, where I have more options, more opportunity. And as destiny is working, when you really are desiring something, the law of attraction is putting the opportunities right in front of your doorstep. So that happened to me. I was invited to an evening event, which was multi-level marketing, and the product were financial services. There was big rah-rah, 600 people in the room, like Herbalife events or something like that. But it gave me, without any education, an opportunity to jump into something and to see, can I do that? Can I become successful here? And yes, I was making it very, very fast. And I saw when I'm on stage, something is entering me. It's not like spooky. It happens to many people, not everybody, but to many people. When the spotlight is on, there's an additional energy suddenly being activated. And that was awesome. And I was like, this is my place. So yeah, then I climbed the ladder of success. I turned 18, got the car, got a better car, finally ended up in a red Italian sports car. And that was 18 and a half and so. And then I said to myself, I'm working for this company here. I'm very successful. Was always one of the top 10 people after every month. But they make so much money on me. Hmm, I think I can do that myself and be the top dog from the very beginning, right? Just with different insurance companies and so on and so forth. And, but I didn't have any startup um, capital to do that. And then destiny came again. And the father of a lady I had an affair with turned out to be a successful businessman with Porsche and everything in Switzerland, company, etc., with an office in Cologne. And he was intrigued by my energy, by my idea when I spoke to him. And he said, well, why don't we become partners? And I was like, but yeah, okay. So he said 50-50. I said, no. I was so naive back then, right? I said, no, that's not fair. Ah, little did I know. And so he said, okay, you think one day you get 24 hours and then you either say yes or no, but I won't change the deal. And so I said yes. And here I was suddenly having a partner, signing contracts in Switzerland, etc., doing my thing then in Cologne. The office was there, penthouse, 2 terraces, Mercedes limousine, 350 SEL back then. Okay. So every evening we had introduction evenings to the program, etc., etc. That's what you need to do in order to get a startup when you are multi-level marketing. And I was doing my job and I was successful. But that's now in relation to your question. There was a feeling of, yes, but you want to say something else, don't you, Mark? Something else you want to say to the people. And yeah, I would love to talk about making a difference in the lives of people. I want to talk about raising consciousness. I want to talk about becoming liberated from the conditioning that haunts us and is embedded deep in the subconscious. Because back then I already was really initiated into all kind of things because of my personal journey, which is a different story. And that feeling was so strong that I felt inauthentic in continuing telling people to jump on the multi-marketing platform and train them to sell the products and all the rest of it. I felt inauthentic. I was like, no, I can't do that. I'm not real, right? I'm not real. So that led to me making a decision to step out. My partner, of course, wasn't happy. And I just knew stage, yes, but I need to speak something that where I feel on stage that I'm completely true because people are listening to me, people pay attention, and I want them to see the real Mark, not a, a form, no matter how successful that form might be. And that then started with me noticing, oh my God, I need to really get on a different platform. So I joined trainings and transformational trainings. I saw other trainers on stage, and I was like, that's it, that's it. This is what I feel I am. And but I need to get more experience in the realm of transformation, human potential empowerment. So I signed up for going to India into a monastery. I was in Nepal, in Japan, and I made my money back then using my body for commercial acting. So I was very, very successful in getting all commercials from American Express cards to Wrigley's chewing gum to Milka chocolate. You know, you saw me all over the place. And there's a lot of money in it in a very short time. It's 1 day of shooting, 2 days of shooting, that's it. And then you got five-digit figures, right? So it allowed me for 3, 6, 9 months to just hang out in monasteries, go to America, do the Werner Erhard trainings and all the transformational stuff that was popular back then. And that really, really worked in me. And when I was 24, I was clear, I'm ready. But then I was like, if I show up 24 years old, speaking about universal principles, etc., who is taking me for serious, right? There's a credibility conflict. Now, I didn't feel like I, it would make sense for me to already, show up as a teacher. So I said to myself, okay, when I'm 30, I feel I'm authorized. I don't know why, but that was the thing. Because my greatest idols, Chetu Krishnamurti, they started when in their mid 30s. Other spiritual teachers of the history of our species were starting around that age. So I didn't want to jump the gun and be so early. So I said, okay, I'm spending the time now to learn even more. So I moved to America. I lived in New York. I lived in Los Angeles. I became a actual actor, musical, singing, dancing, acting. It was fun. And in the meantime, I was like really digging all kind of I did everything, you know, flotation tanks and drugs and whatever expanded consciousness I signed up for. So I got a lot under my belt. I left everything that didn't work for me, and that what worked for me, I consolidated, and I did my first trainings that I created, human transformation in California. I lived in Topanga Canyon, next to Los Angeles, and it was super successful. People were, whoa, whoa, they got it. So I knew I got it. I got, cool. Okay. Then I just need to make a decision now. Do I want to build the organization in America or not? And then it's so funny with us human beings. You know, I was sitting sipping a cappuccino at Sunset Boulevard, and I was like, do I really want to live a life in a country that can't make cappuccinos? Yeah, they all taste like dishwashing water or something. I was like, no, yeah, seriously. So that was my moment. I said, no, no, no. I'm gonna go to Europe. Yeah, I need very quick access to Italy to have that. And that's what I did. So in Europe, then in Germany, I moved back to Germany. I then built from scratch the organization, Creative Consciousness, as I called it later. Back then it had a different name. And. So there's, I'm just sticking to the question you asked because the story is very long. So I wrote a book, The Journey, which is an autobiographic novel for people who are interested in the journey, because the principles I went through, I really was everywhere. I was with the alcohol addicts on the beach of Ibiza. I was in prison, thank God, only 19 days, just custody, so not convicted or something like that. So I tasted every up and down of what a human being can go through. And I wrote it into my book how I dealt with it from a consciousness perspective. So that on the one side, the material success was secured so that I got, I had to, I had to restart 3 times, but every single time I got better at it. And internally, the journey, I also needed to serve. And that then became my teaching. So that the inner million, the outer million, they both need to be like yin yang. They need to be a harmony. You can't walk fast on one leg. Yeah, you need 2 wings to fly. You need the unification of the opposites. And that's when I built my whole theory around shadows, so that successful people who are still wondering why they are stuck and can't scale, or why they are again going bankrupt, or why they are again getting betrayed by their partner. Why are these things happening? And that then became my signature training, Shadow and Light Retreat, with the focus on helping people to protect their talents, to protect their success from their own shadows. But they need to go into their underworld and deal with them, because if you don't deal with your shadows, guess what? They deal with you. And there's nothing, no way, no place in the world where you can go to hide from your shadows. And yeah, some people need to learn it the hard way. So they need to really go into the pain until they are ready for it. Others are just getting it, makes sense, and they become proactive working with their shadows. So I want to stop here now to give you also the space to comment or to ask the next questions. But that's basically what happened.
Yeah, amazing. Really fascinating story, and it sounds like you've done a lot. You've been out there and you've done a lot, had all sorts of different experiences, and yeah, you can tell you've got that energy to really, yeah, just experience many different things. I love how you, yeah, just threw in there. You had a little acting, you had an acting career going on, just out in New York, and then ended up in LA, and the deciding factor whether to build a business over there or come back to Europe was the fact that they couldn't make a good cappuccino in the States. And yeah, I've been out there and I've tasted the coffee and it's not great. So yeah, that's hilarious. But really fascinating. Like you had all this success at a young age, external material success, at a time when, that wasn't now you kind of it's not obviously not normal now, but you do see it more on social media. People do like post their success. So you kind of see this almost it's not real. There's a skewed sense of like all this achievement that people get at a young age, and it's a very small percentage. And
Mm.
and but yeah, you achieved that at a time when that wasn't really there. So you were quite unique, and it's not normal to have that early success in a company or in multiple companies like that. And then you were also at the same time, you said you were exploring consciousness and spirituality from a personal on the personal side, and then you just had this sense that you weren't acting authentically, or you were out of alignment with what your true path was. And then you decided to feel into that, and you figured out that your true calling was to teach this human transformation, and your sort of based on your unique experiences and perspectives, you developed your own theories around how humans can transform. And you mentioned, a part of that is the shadow work and going into the shadow. What can entrepreneurs and business owners that are looking for, more than just that material success? Because I do believe, and I have observed that it is a growing thing that's happening. What can they glean from, what you're talking about there with when it comes to the shadow work and your theories?
When you observe what's really going on in people, if they're willing to show up and be authentic and talk about it, but you see it all over the place that a sense of this is not it, what people do, that is growing, and people have a pressure inside that they can't push away anymore. No amount of addictions and drugs and alcohol and whatever to numb yourself is working. Look, in the 80s, panic attacks was a word that nobody knew. It wasn't there. They maybe have been there, but it wasn't something you experienced as a teenager or in your mid 20s. And today it's common. And anxiety, burnout, that was all not there. And the dissatisfaction, okay, I I support everybody to get their out a million because it's great to have money. You finally can actually do what you want if you're not stupid and spend it on stuff that doesn't fulfill you. At the same time, our souls may have a different agenda for this incarnation. You see, when I work with people and also in my programs, the aspect of the soul and that the soul has an incarnation purpose for its own growth, and the soul is a composer of our destiny. So this is a perspective I invite people to just take on, not as a unquestioned belief, but as a platform, as a context to explore for a couple of days what they see in their life and the life of others when they look from that perspective. So I'm not claiming it's the absolute truth. I'm just inviting people, hey, take a look from that perspective and just see what you notice, what you see. And what people start seeing is that every tragedy that happened in their lives, every time they got betrayed, every time a relationship failed, every time the body had a breakdown, it was a correction of their course. There was something like an obstacle making you stop in going the direction you are going. Because when one door gets closed, another door is open, but our ego and our fears are not allowing us to see that ahead. So drastic measures need to be put in place, and that's destiny. Yeah? And you can read it all over the place. So if one is not interpreting tragedies and failures in a way of now I must even more push and more do, Nothing wrong with, being determined. Yet, the signs of the soul are very obvious. You can sense it. Something tells you it wasn't the right relationship in the first place. It wasn't the right business idea in the first place. It wasn't the right target in the first place, something like that. And then if you don't listen, well, the soul's power is infinite. You get dragged down until you learn by pain. Unfortunately, most people are, challenging their own soul until the red lights are really, really ticking. Midlife crisis is a very popular phenomenon which hits almost everybody. Some people get away with it, just bypassing it, but most people nowadays, especially, are not able to bypass it any longer. Even midlife crisis nowadays starts with people already in their late 20s, 30s, not in their 50s any longer. And this is a calling that our species is pulled by the evolution of consciousness, in which we are just a small part on planet Earth. The evolution of consciousness is part of a universal expansion that, in terms of physics, would be Big Bang, and the universe is expanding. And maybe in a couple of billion years, it will contract here in this little galaxy. And anybody who knows a little bit about the universe's size, our galaxy is just a tiny, tiny atom in the massive universe. So we are part of expansion and higher evolution. So that is a vortex, a gravity nobody can escape anymore. And no matter what you do, you will be stopped by your own soul, so that you start to listen to a different target, to a different purpose of living. Personal evolution, not any longer just making money or building a family or getting a house, the traditional stuff: make money, build a house, have a family, save for retirement, and then, just pray that you're going to be happy. This is not working anymore. People have different values, whether they like it or not. Relationships today, in average worldwide, are having a length less than 2 years. Divorce rates are 50, 60% and growing. So the values of relationships is also not any longer working like 2 generations ago. So the change of values, the change of purpose, is that what everybody is experiencing. And people are scared because they don't have answers immediately. And that's where we come in. That's where I come in with my teachings, and many others, of course, are delivering great, great teachings, offering teachings, and help to get different perspectives to explain what's going on. Because once you are starting to cooperate with your soul's journey, life is going to be a blessing. You get everything delivered on your doorstep. The law of attraction works, and so on and so forth. But if you don't cooperate with your soul's path, you will be corrected time and again. I always like to say the world is one big correction facility. Yeah, from a soul perspective. Right? We are all in, and if we are not listening to the soul's calling, we get corrected. We can do what we want. And I'm pretty powerful. I was stubborn. I thought, no, I'm gonna make that. And yes, I did it, but then I got corrected again and again. And it humbled me. And I suddenly realized, if I continue fighting against my own soul's calling, I'm going to be in a serious trouble, because my soul is probably much more powerful than I am. And that is a good point. So when people start getting that, they do not need to fully understand it, but there is a sense of, that's true. Right? And I do not want to fight any longer. I want to be in harmony. I want to feel that the universe is on my side, not necessarily on the side of the ego and the projections, but on the side of the self. But we need to get in alignment with who we really are in essence, because we are not our body. We are not our thoughts. We are even not our emotions, because emotions are just derivatives of thoughts. Who are we then? Yes, we are that being that is experiencing thoughts, that is experiencing emotions, that is experiencing the presence of the body. That being is who we are. And meditation and spiritual authentic teachings are pointing to exactly that, to the being, the I am. Everything that comes afterwards, after the N, is a game of being a human being, because we are living in a dual world. We are here on a material planet, and nothing wrong with being a human being. Yeah? I always say, hey, you can have your cappuccino. You can have your whatever you want as a human being, as long as you are living your authentic call of the soul. And I found my call the painful way, because I was in a massive depression when I was 16, suicidal, totally despondent, like really not in a good shape. And that was my wake-up call. It was very early. That had to do with other things on a bigger perspective. But my wake-up call was very early, because I was scheduled to start very early contributing to human transformation in the way I do, and serving the purpose that consciousness has in waking up not only a few people, but us as a species, because an enlightened civilization is what we need in order to A, save our planet, B, create different values that have a greater potential to fulfill us, and ultimately to evolve into the possibility a human being existence is there. It's not just survival, it's higher development. And yeah, just want to stop there for that.
Yeah, amazing. It's so yeah, you kind of you opened that up with inviting people to just, be open to the idea that your soul has a path, has a journey. And it's like an internal intuition navigation system that you can intuitively feel into, and the feedback that you get in the outer world is, burnout, stress, like health issues, all these obstacles that and resistance that get in the way when you're off track. And that's okay. And that's caused by the ego, like your ego that you develop over the time. So survival mechanisms and desires and these superficial desires that we have as an ego. So this like that creates noise in your mind that might take you off track because it's not in alignment with your true calling. So that's kind of and then you were saying there's this midlife crisis, existential doubts that are getting people are experiencing that younger and younger. Is that because they're more in tune with being out of alignment? Is that what's happening? Is there an acceleration of consciousness that's challenging people to ask better questions, be more open to this, intuitive soul journey that they're on? Is that what's happening and what's accelerating this, midlife crisis, like relationships falling apart, that kind of thing? What are your thoughts there?
I I only can speculate on that one, because there's no proof. What makes most sense to me is that consciousness ran out of time giving us the benefit of the doubt. It just start pushing us. Said, guys, you're going to eliminate yourselves if you continue like that. And we can't wait 3, 4 generations longer, because technology has developed to such a degree that you can destroy yourselves, and all the rest of it. So it's like consciousness is pushing us. And the younger generation has a greater chance to make decisions that are in the right manner serving the planet, serving us as a species, serving love and harmony and human being and values that fulfill us. Why? Simply because the brain gets a little bit tired when you reach your 30s and 40s. The conditioning is more and more and more confirmed every year by repeated pattern that we have not transformed yet and who live us. I'm choosing my words here very carefully. So the younger generation has a chance, and they are now really being pushed. When I speak to the young people, they are having amazing, amazing insights into who they are. That wasn't the case like 30, 40 years ago. So we need them to wake up because they can then also, by the power of momentum, impact the elder generations who are now at the moment sitting on the big, big buttons where they can make decisions that impact all of us. Right? We see politicians being younger than some generations ago. Of course, the world is big, not in every country, but you can see it. We can see the development of the feminine power. There are more women in leadership positions and so on and so forth. So everything goes into a good direction. If we make it in time, who knows? I don't know. Nobody knows, right? But the signs are all there. At the end of the day, until one has liberated oneself, there's very little impact on other people. So some people jump on the train, they are helping, but they themselves are not really yet free. So your personal freedom is the greatest rebellion that you can possibly bring to the planet. Your very existence becomes unbearable for those who are not awakened. And that is really the greatest power you can bring as a gift to society, to the people. It's your own awakening. That's the greatest thing. You don't need to become a teacher. You don't need to be brilliant in whatever. If you manage to awaken yourself, you're going to disturb the unawakened. And that's exactly what we need.
Mm, yeah, I love that. And it's so true. And you see people out there, focusing on the greater, for the greater good of humanity and community. And I totally agree with you. It stems from the internal, focusing on that internal, and people might argue that, well, that's being self-centered and selfish, but it's, yeah, you're creating, you're enabling yourself to show up as your best self to the
Yes.
outer world, be the example, be the invitation, and then from there you're empowered to contribute after the growth.
Yeah. Yeah. You see, I love when people are successful because the more successful they are, the faster they come to the point where they are really saying, okay, now what? Now what? It's not wrong that I now have financial freedom and, all the toys, whatever. It's not wrong, but what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Yeah, how many houses can you possess? How many cars can you own? That doesn't make sense anymore. 15 cars doesn't make sense to people anymore who are on the path of awakening. So yes to success, and I love to empower talents and entrepreneurs, especially today with the internet and all the technology we have. It's easier than ever to become geographically and financially independent. I love that. So you can just live, I live on Crete and I have an international company traveling to the east and to the west and to the southern hemisphere. Everybody can do that because we all have a special talent that today can be marketed and sold online. Right? And those who are not yet in resonance with that, they hardly have a sense for human transformation on a serious level. Everybody likes read a little book from Eckhart Tolle and Tony Robbins, etc. But walking the path, really being on the path, making the personal investment in time and money, and being humble enough to have great teachers and follow what they are saying so that you can have an experience. It might not be your cup of tea. You can choose another teacher, but you need to first really put your foot into the water. And that's only for those who are solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, freelancers, because they have a sense that they are in charge, or better, responsible to be the source for their destiny, to be the source for their success. And these are the people I work with. Right? And with them, we have so many nowadays. And yes, many are, like a little bit still in illusion, and the American credo, fake it till you make it, and all the rest of it. But hey, we all need to find our way to survive, then higher development, abundance. Yes, 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 all to that. And then you're ready. You're ready to really say, okay, if I had no responsibilities, no limitations, what would I do? What would I really do here on this planet? My time is limited. Everybody's time is limited. These are the questions. That are the real good questions. What would you do if you had no responsibilities and all the resources? You are unlimited. Now what? And that answer, or that sense, that's what you need to then serve. And then the old principle, if you seek the kingdom of heaven first, everything will be given to you, is absolutely true. The law of attraction is haunting you. Right? It's just happening if you are following the path. Call it the path of your heart. And to find that, here we are as teachers. There are Michael Singer and Tony Robbins, and everybody has their part in a bigger serving of consciousness for everybody who is ready to wake up and to step into, I say, 3 steps. Wake up, grow up, show up. That's it. Yeah, wake up, grow up, show up. And then life is great.
Mm. Yeah, you put it really succinctly there, because that was trying to what I was trying to articulate, the wake up, the grow up, and the show up, and people, yeah, once you grow up, you can then show up and contribute. Yeah, yeah, amazing. So you've been through that shift of, being in a situation where you had material success, and then you created a business that was around teaching that transformation, because you shifted into that yourself. So you were in this, flow consciousness state. Um, you mentioned, you said something about, yeah, okay, allowing the law of attraction to come in, which is, people struggle with that because, as business owners, left brain, thinking they've got to plan everything and figure things out, and then create the outcomes. And then this law of attraction concept people struggle with, because they assume that it's about, just meditating, and things will show up, like they'll get checks in the mail and what have you. What's the truth to, when you're talking about law of attraction and building a business from consciousness in that flow state? What's your truth there? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I often get asked by participants in my trainings and retreats, they say, but Mark, I read the book, The Secret, or saw the movie. I'm doing the visualization. I'm practicing that it's already happening and so on and so forth, all the details. But the Ferrari is still not in front of my door. Right? I said, yeah, because the book is not talking about a greater. So the law of attraction only works for those who are in alignment with their soul's path. It's as simple as that.
Mm,
It's as simple as that. The law of attraction is a divine power. And divinity is a perfect harmony. And anything that is not in harmony with that harmony is not working the way it is described in the scriptures. So this needs to be always put into consideration. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. You know, if you do the visualization, if you make your vision board, and if you have a plan, it's great. And the mind is happy because it understands it. But it doesn't materialize. It's not happening in the actual reality. It doesn't show in your bank account. And that has only one reason. Either you're not in alignment with your soul's path, and second, you may still need to transform some shadows, because the shadows can mess and spoil your success totally. Shadows are unresolved traumas. Everybody in their childhood experienced difficult situations. I'm talking about people being in the 4th, 5th, 6-year age. Those difficult situations, we weren't able as children to respond to it holistically, because we were dependent on our parents, their love and their care. And the fear was already embedded by an educational system of reward and punishment. So we weren't in ourselves any longer. We were already in a form to please parents in order to avoid punishment. And then stuff happens. Maybe mom forgot to hug you and you have a breakdown, feeling that you're not good enough any longer to be loved. You know, that becomes then a context, a subconscious belief that is so deep that one doesn't experience it as a thought, but it is there. And it makes you feel inadequate. It makes you feel insufficient. It can be a great power now to prove to the world that you are good enough, that you are adequate. But you will go into a burnout, 100%, no? Because it will not be a solution, because down there, the wound is still open, the shadow is still working. And then there are so many other shadows. So they consolidate to beliefs. It's only a handful. I'm not good enough. I'm unlovable. I'm inadequate. I'm bad. And the fifth one I would need to look up. These are the beliefs that run people's decisions. As I said, you can become very successful, but you never will experience fulfillment. And the work on oneself, to take oneself serious, to recognize that there is a level of consciousness called subconscious, where all the stuff that you don't want to deal with, that you don't want to see, that you are in denial of, the parts that you don't love about yourself, the parts that you are afraid of, the parts that you're poor. And then we wonder why we attract people who are bringing exactly those characteristics that we believe we don't have or we don't want to have into our lives. You know, the shadow carriers. That's why relationships are turning out to be so intensely dramatic after the honeymoon. Yeah? We got the honeymoon. That is evolution's trick to make us mate. And then you are together with somebody. After the honeymoon, the real work starts, because then the shadows are coming out in both of the parties. And as it turns out, one attracts exactly the partner that is able to push the most painful buttons that we are able to experience at this moment. And we thought, our mind thinks we got the wrong partner. But it's not true. This is a perfect partner from a bigger perspective. But no, we don't see it that way. So we think, okay, we need to find a better partner. So a relationship breaks up and you go for the next one. but the next one turns out to be even worse. Right? So how many times do we need to experience the same drama until we consider that we are the source for all of the drama and not the external circumstances? We just cast onto the stage of our lives what our shadows dictate. And shadows, the name says, we are not seeing them. We only experience, we can assume there's a shadow in the conflicts that are on the stage of our lives and in our body. So there we can assume, there must be a shadow. And shadow work is growing the maturity and the awareness to interpret external, including the body, external conflicts, tragedies, events, obstacles, and all the rest of it, in such a way that I can see which shadow in me sits there that I need to address, that is causing this reality in my life. And when I do that, I'm starting to wake up. And then I just need to have good tools to do the necessary work to bring light, consciousness, awareness into the darkness underworld. And that makes the shadows then become allies. So what was scary before, what was not good about you in your judgment, suddenly becomes a power. You turn your shadows, your enemies, into allies. And that makes you feel free. And then you can be yourself as you are, but you are now serving a greater purpose. So all the shadows that you were fighting with, you wanted to become better and all this, stop it. It's no. All of who you are is, we just need to turn the page from enemy to friend. And that's the essence of shadow work. It's pure love. It's unconditional love. Every part of yourself is welcome.
Amazing. I loved how you, yeah, you just made it as simple as, when I asked the question about law of attraction and how does that work, and it's as simple as it works when you're in alignment with your soul's journey, and that's that's the truth of the matter. You can't. It doesn't come from the ego, putting these wishes out into the universe, and you have a Ferrari land on your drive. It's because that's what are you learning internally? What's your shadow, being brought to light by the fact of having a shiny new car in your driveway or something like that. It's just it doesn't make sense with what we're actually here for. Um,
Exactly.
and yeah, and yeah, it's so true about, when you were talking about relationships and you end up, yeah, I mean, I've done that personally. You end a relationship because you think they're not the right person, then you enter a new relationship and these same things are showing up again, and you're like, what is going on here? How am I attracting that experience again? And it's simply because you're not learning the lessons. So yeah, it's people relate to that and resonate with that because it's just so true. Um, so that's evidence in and of itself that you're here to learn and grow and face those shadows and bring them to light. But yeah, amazing. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing these insights and sharing your wisdom. Where can people find out more about you, Mark?
Very simple on the website, creativeconsciousness.com. Creativeconsciousness.com. There are free masterclasses that I have created to share the principles of how to create reality with consciousness. So less personal power, because you only can work that fast, that smart, that long, and that engaged. So there's a limit, but with consciousness, there's no limit. So there's a free masterclass. There are consciousness tests. On what level of consciousness are you? Get a result, and that gives you tools to improve your level. There's a personality test for personalities where I give a video feedback and so on and so forth. So that's great fun to explore, to go there. And all the programs are there. You can also directly get in touch with me via WhatsApp. There's a button on the website, and I'm happy to support anyone who, in sincerity, is reaching out to me. It's a pleasure. It's my mission. I want to just make love a worldwide reality, conscious living a worldwide reality. Because without love and consciousness, no matter, what's enlightenment, it has no value. Nothing has any value without consciousness and love. And yeah, so creativeconsciousness.com. And my next programs here in Europe are Shadow Light Retreat, end of October. That is on Crete here. And in the meantime, I'm over there in the East doing the work. And yeah, so I'm thrilled to work with people who are giving also me the opportunity to just be myself, right? I'm passionate in sharing what I'm able to see and connecting with people and also sensing where they are and helping them in the most effective, powerful way to immediately liberate themselves from anything that limits their light, anything that is in their way of being the greatest version and the right version that their soul wants them to be.
Amazing. Yeah, absolutely fascinating. Again, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your wisdom. I feel like I could speak to you for hours, but yeah, we've only got a certain amount of time, and I'll put some of those links in the description. Make it easy for people to find you, and yeah, I really appreciate it, Mark. I'll be watching your growth and the growth of creative consciousness with great interest.
Awesome. Well, James, thank you. Thank you for the work you do to create podcasts with people like me, and to contribute exactly in
Mm,
the same way, to a massive awakening with a big vision of maybe we are able to become an enlightened civilization. How
mm,
awesome.
absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Thank you.